All right, folks, got a fun one today. We're going to unbox the SoloX 15-inch sub from KICKER. We're also going to dive deeper into the WARHORSE 3600.1, talk about the competition mode. We're going to do some additional tests down to 0.5 ohm. And we're also going to talk about some comments from the previous videos with Riculous. Let's go! The SoloX subwoofer from KICKER is now available in a 15-inch size. Let's get this one unboxed and see what it's all about. These SoloX subs are beast. I've shown the 12 before in multiple videos. I will leave links in the video description below if you want to check those out. At the time of this video, there are 10, 12, and 15-inch models of the SoloX available. They're all offered in dual 2 or dual 1 ohm voice coils with the nice push terminals. Recone kits are available for all different models, so if you blow your sub, it's easy to make a swap out on the fly. Again, we're talking about the 15-inch model today. This is the one we're showing off, and I brought out the old school KICKER Solobaric 10-inch sub, the S10D, just to kind of give you an idea of the difference between these two. Once you see the back, you will really understand this thing means business. Check out this 15-inch. No comparison there, my friends. The 15-inch model is optimized for a 5 cubic foot enclosure tuned to 30 hertz. We don't have a box yet for this one, so we're just going to do some free air flexing here to find out how it sounds with the KICKER WARHORSE 3600.1. I apologize in advance for my creaky stool. So here we go. Let's see how it does. See if we can keep it on the... This 15-inch SoloX was getting down. Here's some slow motion flex for you. Can't wait till we get it into a box and find out what it can really do in a vehicle. But let's move back on to the KICKER WARHORSE 3600.1 and the comp mode or competition mode. Let's take a deeper dive. Let Joe at KICKER describe it.
So what does comp mode do? So competition mode was basically brought on by talking to all the competition people and seeing what they really wanted in their setups, right? What would be helpful. But we've heard a lot about gain creep, crossover creep, like stuff moving when they don't want it to move, right?
The vibration and flexing involved with these SPL style vehicles require people usually to put a dab of hot glue on their settings to keep them from changing. The comp mode or competition mode on the KICKER WARHORSE amp fixes the signal input at 4 volt, so you don't have any gain creep. It also locks the crossover setting to 200 Hz, 24 dB per octave, because they expect you to most likely be using external DSP in these large systems. The WARHORSE can typically handle up to around 16 volts in normal mode, but enable comp mode, you can handle up to 17 volts DC for lithium setups. Also, the aggressive fan cooling allows the amp to stay cool under extreme conditions. Here we have the KICKER 3600 on the test bench. I want to show you guys, we're going to do some extended tests today. We do have to use this key lock. And what we're doing is we're taking the RCA from the head unit, the Pioneer 80PRS, and we are using the key lock here with a breakout for the RCA so that we can boost the line level signal. This amp is said to use a 4 volt input, which is locked. The gain is locked when you have it in competition mode. But I did notice that the Pioneer 80PRS was not, the RCA output was not powerful enough to run this amp during the amp dyno test. You're going to need to use a voltage driver like this or speaker level inputs or a DSP or something like that that has high RCA voltage output so that you can drive the amp for the competition mode. Now let's fire it up so you can hear what it sounds like. All right, let's power up the amp. We're showing about 15.7 volts here on the display. Let's try some low ohm tests. What you say? And here's a reminder from the previous test that I showed in the last video. We did 8 ohms down to 0.8. You can see all the different results here. Beat the rated power by quite a bit. And yeah, performed well. We're going to talk about the efficiency at the end of the video, so stick around for that. Also, KICKER does not recommend loads under 1 ohm, but we know the guys like to push amps, so we're going to push it as well. In addition to that, we're going to be using the LTO setup here, which is 32 amp hours of Yin-Long excess power LTO cells in 6S 8P setup. I'm also using 2 100 amp power supplies to help keep the voltage up during the test, but you will notice some drop, just like a typical car would drop some voltage. Now let's try 0.67 ohms mono first. Again, not rated for anything quite this low. Start off with our voltage kind of high and check this out. Almost 6,000 watts, 5948 at 14.57 volts. Again, we're in the comp mode. We have the amp set up with a high voltage input around 15.4. And here we go, uncertified, we get well over 6,000, 6,627 watts at 14.73. And then finally here for the 0.67, we'll try the dynamic test, sending a 40 hertz pulse tone into the amp. And yes, well over 7,000, 7,280, 14.69. Now we're going to wire the amp down to 0.5 ohm, which is a stupid crazy load, especially with the dyno because it is a fixed load. Let's try it certified, see if we can run the test. And it gets up to about 6,000 watts and the amp goes into protect, but it comes right back out. You don't have to power cycle the amp or anything. So then we decided to try it dynamically, send the 40 hertz pulse tone into the amp. You can see that the amp actually stops the test, 8,530 watts. Let's check it out closer. All right, here's the dynamic test at 0.5 ohm for the KICKER WARHORSE. 8286, you can see the red protect light there where it says amp, and then it comes out of protect. So we got 8286, I'll show you here. 8,286 watts of 15.27. It's important to mention the 0.5 ohm on the amp dyno is 0.5 ohm with resistors. When you hook it up to speakers, there's variance in your ohm load because of impedance rise. That's right, based on your box, based on the temperature, based on a lot of different environmental factors, including the musical playback of the frequency. You're going to see different ohm loads put onto the amp as well as different power put out from the amplifier. Good evening, friends. Riculous here reporting live for WBIGD TV. Today we're going to cover some of the comments from the recent KICKER WARHORSE 3600.1 video from Big D. Some will be ridiculous, some won't be, but let's find out what they're all about. That thing is a power monster on the output. Nice work, KICKER. Lots of positive comments like this for people who watched the video all the way through, plus spent some time watching the KICKER link in the video description with a deep dive technical discussion of these amps. Nothing ridiculous here. Next comment, I don't think the alternator on my Honda Fit would supply the 500 amps needed. Speaking of facts, my friend, Big D failed to highlight KICKER suggests 200 amp fuse to each power lead for a total of 400 amps, which should suffice well for musical playback. The amp dyno tests use test tones, which are much more brutal on the amp and will draw more current that will typically be seen during musical playback. Now here's one of the favorite comments I always read on these dyno test videos of Big D's. Dyno tests should be at 13.6 or 12.5. You trying to install this on a side-by-side? And yet here's another comment. You used to complain about this, but now you're a chuck for KICKER, so you can't be negative anymore. Big D literally listed cons, including the lack of a clip light. The mention of the lack of the clip light on the KICKER WARHORSE 3600.1 has stirred up a lot of controversy on the internet. In previous videos on Wilson Audio Labs, Big D has shown a remote bass indicator with a clip indicator versus the Amp Dyno. Typically, the amp's clip light will come on slightly before the distortion light on the dyno, so this is a good thing, so you know when your amp is clipping. With people agreeing that, hey, the amp should have had a clip light, to people who said, you don't need a clip light, to people who said, clip light doesn't measure clipping. Let's see more about that. And this last comment, which is very interesting, says, y'all need to learn that clip lights aren't measuring clipping. Speak up. I can't hear you over the 1% distortion. Your take on the clip light is very distorted. Don't be a square wave like this guy.
Did you see the memo about this?
It ain't got no
Clip
in it.
This is not a Mickey Mouse program!
In all seriousness, the output clip light I was referring to is not perfect by any means. The amp clip lights typically show clipping well before even 1% distortion. On some models, I'm not saying Kickers do that, but there could be some variances based on component tolerances, etc. So the clip lights are not perfect. But we know that Kicker would make a better one than most people make. Now on to the results here. I do want to talk about the efficiency numbers which I received. I talked to Joe Hobart at KICKER, and we compared the efficiency numbers I got versus the ones he got using the Audio Precision, and his were quite a bit higher. So I did want to mention that. He got in the low 80s at 1 ohm, which is very impressive. But I did want to mention that because the flute clamp that I use here, this is just really an estimate for the amount of efficiency pulled, not an exact number. But what is interesting to see is the AP power output numbers versus the Amp Dyno were nearly identical. Thanks for watching, Big D. I'm out of here. Special shout out to those who support patreon.com/oldschoolstereo. You guys rock. Let's do some more Dick Riculous outtakes. As always, Dick Riculous shows up when it's time to talk about ridiculousness. Today, we were just going over the comments and having fun. Hope you guys enjoyed my segment. Keep your ridiculous comments. We will keep mentioning them here. Till next time, DR out. Y'all need to learn that the clip light is for telling you when your toast is ready. If the clip light is clipping, then you must be tripping if you think the amp is not clipping. Am I slipping?